Sometimes kids hit. Sometimes kids spit. Sometimes they say words that shock you. And what do you do when it's your boy over and over again?
Let's keep calm and mother on. Mothering is way too important to do alone and way too serious to be serious all the time. My name is Christy Thomas, and I am here shoulder to shoulder with you, mothering and enjoying life together. This is the podcast where you can focus on being mindful and taking a deep breath with me and learning new things so you can pause and savor the amazing life you already have.
I am very excited today to have a conversation about boys. I have Tosha Schore here, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm excited to be here and to talk to you.
I am here to lean in. As my listeners know, and as I told you in the beginning, I have 2 teenage girls and a 10-year-old boy, and I have seen night and day difference between like how I approach them and just the energy that they give off. They are completely different kids, and I think their gender does play part of it. I know it plays in my reactions to them.
Well, actually, I love that you're saying that, because people always say to me, like, why boys? Some people even get mad at me that I'm focusing on boys. But the reality is that I focus on boys not because of their innate differences, because I do believe that there's a full gender spectrum, and there are people who say, well, my girl is so aggressive, and
right.
Can she join your program? Or, my boy is super peaceful and calm and loving, and, not sort of the traditional interest in the traditional like boy things at all. But the reality is that the way that, just like you said, the way that we respond to our boys versus our girls, the way that we react to them, and the way that teachers respond, the way that
totally.
Coaches, teachers,
just the whole world, strangers out in public.
Absolutely. It is completely different. And I think we are, playing ostrich if we're going to just say, no, everybody's equal. We do not treat people equally. We treat people different.
Absolutely. I can remember back in my early classroom teaching days of how I treated boys and girls differently. I wasn't trying to,
but not.
Yeah, but it's just what happened. So why does that matter? Why do we need to pay attention to this?
Well, on a most basic level, I think we need to pay attention to it because every person is a unique individual, right? We don't want to be boxing somebody in just because of anything about them, including their gender. So, I think that's kind of the main thing that I would say. Let's just start there.
Yeah.
And then we need to realize, where are we doing that? Like, where are we boxing people in? And so if you've got a young boy, like maybe you've got a boy and a girl.
Yep.
Like, how are you? You mentioned, how are you showing up different? How did you notice you were showing up differently? What were you doing differently?
The girls had the full spectrum of colors easily in their clothes. And one day my little boy wanted a rainbow bag, and then I flinched and I was like, wait, yes, of course you can have this. But like, that was one of the first things I noticed.
Right. And so there are things like that, which I think are important. And then I think for me, like the biggest issue with our boys is that they need to be able to feel. And we, as a world culture, have boxed them into a very small box where anger is pretty much the only emotion that they have access to.
Yeah.
It's wreaking havoc on our world and on our planet, not to mention our families. So, we tend to be much more comfortable with girls sharing their full rainbow, if you will, of feelings.
Right.
From sadness to, all sorts of vulnerability, jealousy. But if a boy, especially as he grows, as he gets older, if he's showing those feelings, maybe he was left out, maybe he feels dissed by somebody, maybe he, somebody broke up with him, maybe a friend group is no longer interested in having him apart, and he has these vulnerable feelings of being left out or not enough or embarrassed. where does he go with those? And in order for us to raise a generation of emotionally intelligent men, we need to be able to hold space for those feelings, not flinch, or at least like to notice we're flinching, and then go like, okay, like you did, take a breath and be like, okay, whoops, like let's go in here, like let's just be present and allow him to feel with no shame.
That's really, 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 really important to think about, because I remember that my girls can label a lot more feelings, probably because I shared those labels with them. And I remember getting to his early preschool years, and he could tell me like sad and mad and glad. Like his range was not as much.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I don't know, how much of this is innate and how much of this is, due to the cultures that our kids grow up in. But a lot of clients that I have, a lot of parents come to me with young boys who don't want to talk. They don't want to talk about it. And oftentimes it's the mothers who are seeking parenting help, not always, but in most of the situations. And they're like, he won't talk to me. I ask him what's going on and he won't share, or what happened at school today and he won't share. And we have to find different ways to create closeness. It's like when we're coming to them with those questions, we're not sort of making space for them to be themselves. We're not looking for the ways that they communicate with us. We are saying, this is the way that one communicates feelings. I need you to do it my way. Yeah. And if we're going to have that standoff, we're going to lose, because they're going to retreat and they're not going to give us the information in the way that we hoped that they would, right? It's not like, for a lot of us, we wish like, oh, I wish my boy would just sit down and like tell me all about his day and what's going on with his friends and his classes. Yeah. And so, I've got a kid like that.
They do exist. There are some boys, right, that do that, but
absolutely. But not everybody. I got two that don't.
Yeah.
Right? And so if I'm going to demand that of them, I'm not going to really get to know who they are. In order to get to know who they are, I need to be quiet and listen. I need to notice, how do they communicate? And what are some other ways that I can get creative about making that space where they feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable with me?
So it sounds like it's really important to just get to know your kid and be able to notice their tells and how they move through the world. That parenting, each kid is so different regardless of their gender. But if we don't allow our sons in particular to like be noticed and have to do it just the female verbal way, then we're going to miss a lot.
Absolutely.
So how do we help our sons feel connected to us when they're not going to maybe want to go sit on the couch and share a coffee at Starbucks, right? Like, how do we get them to talk? How do we feel like we can hear them?
Yeah. So play is going to play a big role. And so, like, and when I say play, I don't mean like sit down and, play Chutes and Ladders, that's great too.
I was going to say, are we supposed to play Mario Kart or Minecraft? What do we do?
Or video games necessarily, but I'm talking about like big, kind of rough and tumble, close, like physically close, get the laughter going, get sweating kind of a play. Because it does breed closeness and connection. If you can just think about the last time that you laughed deeply with somebody, you felt close to them, and play often brings laughter. So any kind of game that you can think of, and probably your little guy is guiding you in that direction and you're saying no. In some kind of a way. Like, it's not like parents go, I don't know how to play. Like, I don't know what to do. Well, most kids are going to be asking you to play.
Absolutely.
Right. So maybe they're coming and they're like giving you a little pat on the tush, right?
Yeah.
And then like running away. That's a bid for connection. That's a bid for play, right? If we get stuck in, oh my God, I can't believe you just, knocked me on the butt. Like, that is not okay. I'm going to do all the things.
Right? Because the mom brain goes like, there's consent. Like, he's touching people. We shouldn't touch people like that. All the things spiral so fast.
they spiral so fast, and our fear drives us, but we need to let our love for our sweet boys drive us, and the knowledge that there is a sweet boy in there, even if the behavior is a little bit off at any particular moment. And so in a situation like that, like maybe even he's coming with an energy that his behavior is off, and you're just like, oh God. Even in that situation, play is going to bring you closer, because it is going to create that opportunity for laughter and for closeness. And just brain science wise, like once he feels connected to you, that that laughter, and once he feels connected to you through that laughter, through the gleam in the eyes and all of that, his thinking brain is going to come back online, and his behavior will improve. So we tend to go the opposite direction. We tend to think, well, I don't know if we tend to react and come down hard and harshly, and expect that the behavior is going to improve. Where if we stop and actually think about what's going on inside a child, the opposite is true. So play is going to be really, really key.
So, does it matter for boys if it's more physical play? It sounds like, do you have physical roughhousing sort of play? Is that what it looks like in your house?
Yeah, I mean, roughhousing play is key. So things like big pillow fights, or Larry Cohen has this great sock game, you know, the sock game. Yeah,
so I just interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and that's been like a hit in my house. My 10-year-old can't get enough of the sock game.
Right? I mean,
and he was super grumpy the other day, and he was about to spiral, and I could pick up that energy. I was like, we got to play 3 rounds of the sock game. And then we both walked away like, oh, like connected and calmer and laughing, lots of laughter, because I had to tell him not to fart in my face, right? Like, come on.
Exactly. I love that. So, so for people who don't know what it is, it's essentially everybody's got socks on. You sit down on the ground, and you can't stand up. You got to stay seated, and you're trying to pull the other people's socks off, while at the same time preventing your own socks from getting pulled off.
Yeah, and I'll put the episode that I did with him in the show notes. So if you haven't heard that yet, it ties into this hardcore.
Yeah, he's great. And then he also co-authored a book with De Benedett on called The Art of Roughhousing.
Yep.
Which is great. It's like an encyclopedia of play. So yeah, I'm talking about big play.
Yeah.
Chase, even like jumping on a trampoline, anything that brings laughter. So for a younger kid, you might notice that anything that is unusual for a responsible, in control adult to do generally brings laughter, whether that be, accidentally tripping, or saying the wrong thing, or, burning the eggs, or whatever it is. Instead of going to that dark place, we can laugh at ourselves, or go to laughter. Like these are the things that build connection. But another thing that's important is just to notice like how your kids are different. So like, for example, I have one kid who tends to be more reserved. Let's just say he doesn't waste his words.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes, his brothers will be like, oh, he doesn't talk, or even dad will be like, he doesn't, I don't know, he doesn't say anything. And I just say to them, you know what, if y'all would just be quiet for a minute, he would say something. So I have learned, like, we are very close, but we got close because I noticed that his comfort place, his place where he felt good opening up, was in a place of calm and quiet. He's never going to open up when there's like a room full of people. He's never going to open up like, I was going to say middle of the day, but that's changed some. Sometimes it is the middle of the day, but he's never going to open up quickly. And he's never going to open up on my terms. And so the best way for me to get close to him is to be present in the same room as him, often late at night, but not necessarily also in the middle of the day or even in the morning. If nobody else is around and I'm just sort of, putzing around, he will offer something. And then I've learned that I don't jump at that first bit of information.
This is important.
Yeah, I don't jump at that. I just listen. I really don't say anything. Or, maybe I say, or something. So he knows
something, the show active listening.
But I'm waiting for him to offer more if he wants to. And if he doesn't want to, that's okay too. But it is not true that he won't share, or that he doesn't want to be close, or that he doesn't know how to share, or any of those things. It's that those around don't know how to listen.
Ooh, so that sounds like a next important thing. So playing with connection, and then actually learning how to listen.
Right. Knowing how each of your kids is different, right? Like some of your boys are going to be more like outgoing and rambunctious and loud, and some of them are going to be more reserved, and all of them need to be heard. And I remember actually my mentor, Patty Whipfler, once telling me, when my oldest, I was just really struggling with my oldest, and her saying something like, well, and I said, my second one, he's so easy. Like, how is this one so easy? And the other one is like so hard. And she's like, just wait. Like once you help him and he's on a better path, the other one will show you where things are hard too. And that's exactly what happened. And it's what happens with my clients. It happens because every human being, all your kids, like whether they appear as outgoing and full of energy or more reserved, they all struggle, and they all need the connection with us. They all need us to thrive.
Yeah. All kids need their parents to feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we got to not do it on our terms all the time. We really do need to notice, how does my boy express himself? And if you're triggered by that, right, because maybe he expresses himself with rainbow bags or wearing dresses, and that's not how you grew up, and that's not what your family would accept, and all the things, and there are feelings of embarrassment that come up, or shame, or I don't know, then that's for you to address. Right? Your job, our job as parents of these young boys, is to learn how to become their best advocate as they grow into whoever they are, not to make them into whoever we think they should be.
And that shame and awareness can be just around expressing feelings too, right? Like you might not have grown up with a male who ever cried around you. So even seeing a little boy cry, you might feel like you need to shut it down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And dads I've seen, again, I don't want to generalize, but I'll just tell you from my experience, because I work with a lot of parents, moms and dads. Dads tend to often have a harder time listening to their boys' feelings. And what I've discovered is that it comes from a very loving, kind place. It's not that they're trying to shut their sweet boy down at all. Mm-hmm. It's that it's more than likely that they, at some point at a very young age, were shamed for showing their feelings. Yeah. And they don't want their boy to experience that same sense of shame that they felt. So it's important when we work with parents to really have that compassion for dads, and understand that oftentimes that is what's going on. And it does take some time to get comfortable enough to be able to advocate for him to feel. And maybe it's that you learn to, bring him into the car, or, kind of wrap him under your jacket so that it's not so obvious to everybody, and you can stay calm and he can stay close to you.
Yeah.
But it is important that we recognize where we struggle, and that we work on our own stuff so that we can show up for them in the way that they need us. And boys need to feel like we have the state of the world is just horrible.
It is a mess out there.
It's a mess. And there's so much violence happening. Mm-hmm. Gun violence in the United States is out of control. Terrorism. Yeah. Rape. The list is very, very long. And most of it, I hate to say, is men. Yeah. It's older boys and men. And again, let's not be ostriches. Like this is the situation. And so my work is about, well, what can we do to create a more peaceful world? And as parents of young boys, we have an opportunity to raise them differently. We have an opportunity to intervene early when we see they're struggling with big angry feelings, for example, aggression and all the hard stuff.
Yeah, that was going to be the next question here, because the opposite of sadness I can see turn really quickly into mad and like big anger sometimes.
That's right. So if we don't give them the space to be able to feel those vulnerable feelings, they're like a pressure cooker. They keep everything inside.
Yeah.
And just like a pressure cooker, a human can't hold all of those feelings in forever. They are going to explode. So in some kids, they come out in ways that are more societally acceptable, like sucking their thumb or chewing on their shirt, sucking their shirt. You see kids with wet shirts or sleeves or whatever. Sometimes, or other repetitive behaviors. Maybe they just sort of like, I don't know, touch their hair in a certain way, or we all, when we don't have the opportunity to express our true selves and our true feelings, will develop these repetitive behaviors to try to tamp the feelings down.
Okay.
But what happens is we can only do that for a period of time, and then we explode in some way. So it's either going to move towards, how do I keep numbing?
Yeah.
Right? How do I keep numbing? And as our kids get older, those numbing tactics get more and more ugly.
Get more and more scary for long-term impact. Absolutely.
Right. So it might start out with, video game addiction or even reading addiction. I've worked with parents whose kids, they're completely addicted to reading. And like, we get confused because it's like, oh, great, they're reading. No, but they're like, reading every time they feel something, like they won't make eye contact, they won't feel anything. Like, this is an issue. So kids will try to numb, but eventually they will explode. Or like I said, like, okay, if you take the book away, then they're going to go to something else. Or as they move into teen years, like they're used to trying to find ways to numb, and then they turn towards alcohol or drugs or those types of things. Obviously, this isn't everybody, but this is definitely a pattern that we see. I would rather that your sweet boy is exploding all over the place, because even though it feels impossible to deal with, it's actually much easier because you know what's going on. You're like, okay, I can see this kid is struggling. This is a call for help. I need to figure out how to answer that call for help, because, he will explode. He can't hold those feelings in forever. If we're not listening, they're going to explode. They're going to be like, the constant hitting of the brother, or, getting in trouble at school, all the things. We can't hold our feelings in as human beings. We need to feel felt. We need to feel seen. And as parents, it's our job to be that person for our little ones.
So even what do we do? Like, I'm so relieved that you said you'd rather have a kid exploding, because that takes like the shame out of it, right? Like, we don't talk to our best friends about like kids' big behaviors and like feeling out of control with our own kids.
Which is a problem, because that pretense, helps, shame likes darkness, right?
Yeah.
It helps the shame just sort of get really comfortable.
Yeah.
And the embarrassment get really comfortable, and we're isolated. We're so isolated from one another, and that just increases the isolation, which increases our worry, which increases our bad behaviors towards our kids. So we need to start. One of the things we need to do is we need to start being honest with each other about what is going on in our families, right? When somebody says, how's your boy doing? You can say, he's great. I love him. And we're struggling with some aggression right now. I've just noticed, like, every time I ask him to do something, he, calls me horrible things, or he tries to kick me, or he has a huge tantrum or whatever. Like, we need to start normalizing this behavior so that we can help each other through, because it is normal. I mean, I run an entire business helping parents of young boys who are struggling with aggression and hard behaviors. It's happening.
Someone just took a big exhale there, I think, right? Like,
Good. My boys struggled. That's why I got into this in the first place. I felt so ashamed, and other people were, giving me the side eye and all the things.
Oh, totally. I've had the embarrassing moment with my son, and I'm like, whoa, there's other people here. I don't know how to respond to this. Like, I want to respond kindly, but But man, like, this is a lot of energy. This is a lot of physical movement. I didn't grow up like this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, back to play. It's going to be key. Like when you're dealing with aggression, there is, I want parents to know that there's a lot you can do. So first we need to talk about it with each other. So it's not like this anomaly and we don't feel like we're we've done something terribly wrong to create this monster in our house, for example. Or that there's something terribly wrong with him that he's acting this way.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of that online, right? Like it's really easy to spiral and like start to self-diagnose my kid about something awful. And I'm like, but wait, maybe he just is a kid here.
Exactly. I think, what is normal, like what the average parent sees as normal is a very, very narrow sliver of what's actually normal. And that doesn't mean that I'm saying to you parents out there like, oh, aggression's fine, just let him hit you. No, I am not saying that at all. But I am saying that, a little boy hitting you when he doesn't get what he wants, or spitting at you, or biting, or kicking, or calling you horrible names, that is happening in many, many households. Yeah. And there's a lot we can do about it. And so some of the things are really building a strong connection with him. So not letting that behavior push you away.
Mm-hmm. That's hard to do.
It is hard to do. It is hard to do, but we need to remember that it is just a different way to call for help. Like it's like with feelings, we've labeled them good or bad. Like behaviors also. Well, this is an okay way to ask for help. It's an okay way for you to say, if your kid says, I'm feeling scared, mom, can you help me, blah, blah, blah. But most kids don't do that. They don't come to us and say like, Mom, I feel scared. It's like they come home and they, throw their backpack down on the table and say, I'm hungry. You're like, whoa, dude.
Yeah.
Right? That's fear too.
This is so good.
We need to understand how to recognize it. So we need to recognize what aggression is, which is generally fear in disguise, so that we can access our empathy to be able to move towards our sweet boys. And we want to build a really, really strong connection with them so that they've got a sort of a reserves in the tank for when things go south.
Yeah.
If you will. And we also have to get really good at setting limits so we can keep ourselves safe.
Yep.
Also super, super important. And we got to get really good at playing.
Yeah.
Even when we don't feel like it, we need to get rid of this notion. I hate this. People think like, well, if my kid is like acting all wonky, right? And I come in playfully, I'm rewarding the behavior and I'm going to end up with more of this type of behavior down the road. I'm just making it worse. That is probably the biggest lie out there about parenting.
It makes me want to scream. Thank you for saying it. Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. That is not how it works.
No. Yeah. The more I can show up, if I can diffuse the situation by starting to sing opera, which is a go-to strategy for me, or speaking in alien language, it helps me notice something different about the situation.
Right. And it also helps you remember your role and to stay calm.
Yep.
Right. And it also kind of surprises him because for better or for worse, for worse, really, our boys are used to being come down on pretty hard.
Yeah.
Like we said at the beginning, teachers, coaches, they come down on boys much harder than girls. Much harder.
It's important to remember that. So if a boy, do you have an easy phrase, or maybe this is too big to put in here. But if a boy is consistently hitting or spitting, is there that boundary piece? Is there a simple thing that a mom could practice to start feeling better about that?
To start feeling better about it?
Or protect herself in the moment? Is there a way to coach that? If a kid is coming up and hitting the mom? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hitting and spitting are different because one is you're really going to get hurt.
Yeah.
The first thing that I want to say is that it is really important for us as parents to not let our children hurt us.
Yep.
Because what happens is when they succeed, which they don't really want to, but if they do land that punch, or if we do end up with a black eye or a bruise, or a scratched arm, which sometimes is going to happen, by the way. We are imperfect. We can't always protect ourselves. But what happens is if there's a pattern of that success happening there, it scares him more. Like that power that he has scares him more. It's like the person who's supposed to be keeping everybody safe isn't able to. He's got this big, huge presence and power, which scares him. And the fear drives the aggression, and that cycle just gets worse.
Gotcha.
So it is important that we interrupt the aggression with limits. And I like to say loving limits. And, we can't go into all the details of it here, but I will say that you want to say very little and you want to do what you need to do to stay safe. So that might be blocking. Okay. That might mean sometimes being on the other side of a door, but it's going to mean if you say anything to keep your voice calm, even if you're on the other side of the door. So if you're feeling like you can't protect yourself in that moment, or you're feeling too triggered to be calm in the face of his upset coming at you. Like I see, and they can't see because we're on a podcast, but I see a door behind you. Like you could be on the other side of that door and saying, I'm here, sweet boy. I'm here. I can't let you hurt me, but I'm right here with you. And so you've got that calm, coming at his limbic system, letting him know you love him and you're there, but you're not allowing him to land the punch. Now the door might be getting banged and people are going, but he's going to break my door or whatever. Honestly, I'd rather the door got banged than you acted out in a way that you felt horrible about later because you were dysregulated, or that you got hurt and then, like I said before, he got more scared and then the behavior just sort of spirals down.
And it spirals for you too if you get hurt, because then you withdraw.
Exactly. And we tend to get really mad when we get hurt. I mean, withdrawal is one thing that people will do, and other people will explode. So, but both are dangerous for the child, but the explosion's really dangerous, right? There's many a parent who has been hit and then hit back, right? We don't want to do that. We want to learn the skills. Let me back up. We want to both learn the limit setting skills, and playful limits, by the way, work as well.
Yep.
And also we really do need to be in community with other people who are struggling with these struggles, so that we don't get paralyzed by the shame. Because we can't solve the problem if we're walking around pretending like it doesn't exist.
Yep.
First, we have to be like, hey, I got a problem. My kid's hitting me when he gets upset. This is not working. My kid's spitting in my face. This is not working. And you can't just go say that to your neighbor because you're too embarrassed. Yeah. So you need a community.
You also need your safe spot.
That's right. You need to be able to have that community, and then you need to learn the skills. And I started to say that playful limits are also an option. So if a kid does come at you, you could respond playfully. You could, if you're quick, you can, jump out of the way. You could grab a pillow, you could toss it his way. You could start giggling, or like, wait, hang on, wait, he's after me, you get me, or whatever it is. And again, moving away, recognizing that that's fear, recognizing that it's a child who's off track, who doesn't feel connected to you in that moment, and create the playful environment to bring him back towards you, to help him feel your presence and your love, because the behavior will subside once that happens.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a really, really, really good conversation. I think that I definitely could have used, and maybe I still will need this sort of resource as he grows up, right? We've had different phases where I've sat in the car crying, a friend with moms of older boys. Like, what do I do? And thankfully I had a person who told me my kid was awful. I remember he was this was hard. And so I knew I had someone safe I could ask.
So important.
Well, thank you for being here. You have a resource for people about how to reconnect with their boys. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to say that my business is called Parenting Boys Peacefully, and I specialize in helping parents who've got young boys like 2-ish to 10-ish who are struggling with aggression and other hard behaviors. And one of the first steps towards helping your sweet boy is by rebuilding or strengthening your connection with him. So I put together this free 10-day reconnect for parents to go through, and just kind of get back on track and remember that they actually like their kid. They can have fun together.
Yeah, that he's a sweet boy. Like you've said that. So that's such a phrase that you say over and over.
It is. In my community, we call our boys our sweet boys. And that's just because that's what I called my boys growing up. They're now 16, 18, and 20 at the time of this recording. And I still call them sweet boys sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the reconnect is just a great, simple way to get started in literally 15 minutes a day. If you like 15 minutes a day, you give me 15 minutes a day for 10 days, like your life will look different.
It's amazing.
I noticed the other day, just noticed that somebody was going through and they watched like day 1, and then the next day they watched day like 2 through 10. And I thought to myself, okay, I got to make this a little bit more clear. This isn't a race to get through day 10. Like spend 15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And things will change. Just watching or just listening to me is not going to create change in your family. But implementing the really simple strategy that I throw out to you each day will absolutely transform things.
That's awesome. I've done it. I've done it. It's really powerful. It really, really helps. How, as you're helping all these other parents around the world connect to their boys peacefully, how are you taking care of yourself right now?
Oh, well, I have a lot of things that I do to take care of myself. I will say that one thing I've learned in the 2 decades of doing this work is that we as parents have to put ourselves first. So one of my passions is traveling.
Okay.
And so I do a lot of traveling.
That's awesome.
A lot of traveling, and I bring my computer and I work from wherever we are. I just showed my boys, I'm like, look where my office is next week. I'll be back in a week.
That's awesome. I love that. And how are you connecting? How are you having fun as a family?
How are we having fun as a family? Gosh. Well, like I said, they're older. Actually, my oldest just came home from college this weekend. We all watched a comedy show together on Saturday night, which was hysterical, and we all laughed a lot. So at this stage, that's one of the things that we do. We also hike together, like leave the phones home and go out in nature. And just notice what comes up in conversation or doesn't.
Yeah.
And get to be quiet with one another.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Tosha, for coming on and having this conversation. I remember I Googled you because of aggressive boy behavior, and I'm glad that I found you. And I'm glad that I can share you with lots of other moms out there, because this is normal and you're not alone. But you, Tosha, have always been exactly the right mom for your 3 sweet boys. And thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me on, Christy. I've really enjoyed it.
Hands down, you really should go try her 10-day challenge. It will make a difference for you and your sweet boy, especially if they are under the age of 10. Parenting is always about taking care of yourself and noticing where you are. And I have found that to be a challenge, separating how I respond to my son versus my daughters. And I'm honored to bring this conversation to you. Please text it, share it, email, put it on social media. Help other moms with boys listen and feel not alone. I am so glad you are here on Earth. You are exactly the right mom for your kids. Remember, motherhood is way too serious to be serious all the time. Thank you for pausing, keeping calm, and having fun with me. Bye.